Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2017 comedy CHiPs. Now, CHiPs is a loose adaptation of the TV show of the same name, which was actually fairly successful in the 70s and early 80s. It's pretty much the show that made Erik Estrada famous, and I don't even remember who the hell the other guy was. John? So, I don't remember who the actor was who played John. Most people don't. I know of the show, but I never really watched that much of the show. I know my parents didn't mind watching some reruns of the show, but it was never really a favorite of mine. So this is a movie I just decided to check out because I like Dax Shepard. I think that's one of the main things. I mean, I like Dax Shepard. I like him. I think he's a cool guy. There's a lot of films that I've liked him in. I wanted to see what his directing would be like because he directed this film. And I also like Michael Peña. I liked him in Ant-Man, and I just thought maybe there might be some fun to be had here. Maybe some nice motorcycle stunts, maybe some, fun with that kind of stuff. I was looking for dumb fun, like 21 Jump Street or things like that. What I wanted out of Baywatch. And that's another reason why I wanted to watch this, is to try to see this as kind of a comparison between the two. Like, which one is better and which one is worse? And I gotta be perfectly honest, I thought Baywatch was much, much worse than CHiPs. CHiPs, to me, had more things about it that were actually noteworthy. I thought Dax Shepard's direction was really solid. It had some great stunt work with real motorcycle stunt riders. It had some actual practical explosions with real fire and real pyrotechnics, something that is completely absent in Baywatch. And Bywatch because, because you're watching the movie as it's waving by to you, and your way or your sense or your ability to be entertained, it's waving goodbye to that. It's like, bye-bye, entertainment is gone. Anyway, yeah, I know Baywatch has its fans, but I'm not one of them. This had potential, and that's why it's so frustrating that it's ultimately still a bad movie. It's still a below-average film, and it's only better than Baywatch. And that's not saying much, really. Oh, it's better than Baywatch. Yeah, well, good for you. You want a golf clap, CHiPs? Nice job. But really, it is one of those things where it's got more to it. There's actually some noteworthy aspects of this movie that have been overlooked by a lot of critics, but I can see why, because it's such a painfully generic film. It is honestly kind of incredible that this film was even released in theaters. Because this entire screenplay by Dax Shepard, who honestly needed another writer, he really did. He's pulling double duty here as a writer, actually triple duty. A writer, a director, and an actor in the film. And really what he should have done is hired some other writers, because I like Dax, I do, but, man, dude, this script sucked. You needed somebody else to come in and do some rewrites. The dialogue was fucking ass. No pun intended, because this dialogue, there's a repeated joke where it's just all about talking about eating ass. And it's off-putting, it's gross, it's not funny, and it's just like, why? Why this obsession with eating ass? Why is that your repeated joke, your go-to joke? And there's other stuff too, like Michael Peña is an ass man, and he's a ladies' man, and there's all this sort of scatological humor and dick jokes and the homophobia thing. Oh God, a guy, and he's around another guy's balls. Oh God, it's so uncomfortable. Oh, it's just lazy. It's a lazy script by Dax. But there are some things in the script, though, that are cool. How they soup up their motorcycles and change some Ducatis into police bikes. How there's a fun little confrontation with Dax Shepard and one of the villains near the end, and they both have casts on their arms, and they get in a little duel with the casts. The whole thing where you have John's character that Dax plays, who's this guy who was a former motocross star, who then decides to join CHiPs because he hasn't been able to get any work and wants to try to save his marriage, and he's a walking pharmacy, and he's fucked up, and he can barely even move properly. But he can ride the bike really well, but other than that, he's a fucking mess. I like that aspect about the character. That's something different. He's not a character who can do everything and do anything. When he can do everything on a bike, but when he's not on a bike, he's fucking useless. Or, not necessarily useless, but he's at a serious detriment. He isn't really able to do that much physically. He can't shoot a gun very well. So, I mean, that's a different sort of dynamic. And I thought he and Michael Peña they had some great chemistry with each other. They were likable characters. And there were some game supporting cast members in this cast. Vincent D'Onofrio, yeah, he's playing a villain. It's kind of his shtick now. Vincent D'Onofrio's in the movie. Well, he's a villain. And I actually appreciate that Dax didn't have his script have this sort of whodunit thing, or trying to show you, or trying to keep it a secret who the villain is. Like Vincent D'Onofrio, like maybe it could be him, or maybe it could be this other guy, and then reveal it to be Vincent D'Onofrio. Because if you've seen a lot of movies lately, doing that with the character played by Vincent D'Onofrio is just doing a disservice to people who are watching the movie. So that didn't really bother me that much, that they were like, okay, yeah, he's the bad guy, right from the get-go. And what I liked about his character, Ray Kurtz, was that he actually had a motive that was, I honestly thought was interesting. He wanted to steal all of his money so he could go off to Haiti, I don't think Haiti, but go off to like some island somewhere and go to some island paradise with his son, who's a heroin addict. And he wanted to find a way to get him healthy, to get him better. And I guess the way he thought about doing it was to take him away somewhere, because he just couldn't really put him in rehab. And it's interesting at the same time. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's kind of like, what, really? This guy, you can't put him in rehab? It's just one of those things. It's like, all this to steal money so I can fuck off to Brazil with my son or some shit, so he can maybe get off heroin. But, I mean, I like the fact that the script actually did go that far and made him so he wasn't a completely one-dimensional villain. But there was still, it still wasn't 3 dimensions or anything. It's still, your typical Vincent D'Onofrio bad guy performance. He did a fine job. But his character also comes across as somebody who doesn't really fit with the whole tone of the film. He's this serious, dead fucking serious guy you don't want to fuck with, and you have this movie that has Michael Peña, getting googly eyes over women in yoga pants, and jokes about coming and constipation and all this other stuff, and you have Vincent D'Onofrio's character who is dead fucking serious. It's a very strange shift in tone. And there were a few other actors and actresses that I thought were, it was fun to see Jane Kaczmarek. I don't know if I said her last name correctly. I probably didn't. Kaczmarek as Jane Lindell, the police captain. She's most well known as being Malcolm's mom in Malcolm in the Middle, so it was nice to see her again. Kristen Bell was pretty fucking hot, drop dead gorgeous as Karen Baker, John's wife, who is a total bitch, but she played the role well. And there's a few other people. Jessica McNamee as Lindsay Taylor. She was pretty hot and I thought she did a good job what she was asked to do. I liked the fact that there was all these different cops and things like that on the force that were dirty, and the film also did take some chances of the screenplay with a lot of the stuff where, for example, I'm going to spoil this is spoilers here. The son of Vincent D'Onofrio's character Ray Kurtz, played by Justin Chatwin, he actually gets killed before the end of the movie. He gets decapitated while he's riding on his motorcycle, and like a wire decapitates him. And it's done practically, I believe. So that's one of those things that was like, wow, like that was pretty shocking. I wasn't expecting that. Michael Peña's character, he loses some of his fingers because they get blown off by Vincent D'Onofrio. In that scene where the son of Vincent D'Onofrio's character gets his head cut off, Dax Shepard gets hit by a SWAT truck driven by Vincent D'Onofrio, his character, and he ends up in the hospital. So I mean, there's some actual kind of, wow, okay, that's a bit different. There's a whole sort of subplot going on with these two guys on the force who work for CHiPs, and they are lovers. The two guys are lovers. That's different. That's a different thing. So, I mean, there's some potential here. There's some nice cinematography by Mitchell Admonson. There's some good I thought really great editing by Dan Lebenthal, especially in the sequences with the motorcycle chases and stuff like that. Like I mentioned earlier, some really impressive motorcycle stunts and practical explosions and things like that. There's one example of some really shitty CGI though, during the climax, when Dax is getting in there's a confrontation between him and Ray, and Michael Peña's character Ponch ends up getting in the way of the bullet, takes a bullet for him, but the bullet ends up going into Dax Shepard's arm, and one of his entire arm is basically the entire bone in his arm is titanium, and so it bounces off the titanium and hits Ray in the head. Now, this was some really fucking awful CGI, because it bounces off, it's a CGI bullet, goes through D'Onofrio's head, and it's a CGI entry wound and blood. That was really shitty. And it's surprising that they did that, because for the most part, everything was practical. Everything that they could possibly do practically, they did it that way. And so it was just very stunning and just jaw-dropping to see such a really half-assed CGI effect near the end. But I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, considering this script is one of the most half-assed I can think of. Yes, it's got cliches and things like that, but that doesn't necessarily bother me if it's entertaining. And this movie was just only marginally entertaining. Like, it was entertaining, there are worse ways you can spend your time than watching this movie. Like I said, you could be watching Baywatch instead. But that's not saying much. This still isn't what I'd call a great movie or even a good movie. It's just one of those films that it's not shitty enough that it really pissed me off, because I wasn't expecting that much from it to begin with. But it wasn't, and there were some things that did stand out to me. There were some things that I liked. I liked Dax Shepard. I liked Michael Peña. I liked those two together. I liked seeing the mom from Malcolm in the Middle. There were a few other elements of the script that I thought were actually really well done for the most part, but sadly those are overshadowed by the really lame humor of talking about eating ass and all this other stuff, and the whole, oh god, I touched another man's balls, or whatever. That type of just lazy, hackened, uninspired bullshit humor. And the story, the whole plot was just, should have been thrown away. It was total garbage. It's this, Vincent D'Onofrio is in the CHiPs. He's a member of the CHiPs force, and he's setting up these armored car robberies because he wants to take his son to someplace so he can get clean, and then the son gets killed, so then it kind of makes that whole plot pointless. But at the same time, I do appreciate the balls the film has to be like, yeah, we're gonna fucking kill this guy, we're gonna go the unexpected route there. But at the same time, it kind of, they went that route, and then it kind of just fucked everything up. And then it's kind of like, why is he doing this? What's going on? The motivations are just the performance is fine by Vincent D'Onofrio, but his character is just paint by numbers villain. And this is screenplay. Screenplay is a paint by numbers script. So you have some likable characters, some game actors and actresses in the cast, other than the main two. Erik Estrada has a cameo near the end, and it's not really that great. And you just have a movie that really, just like Erik Estrada's cameo, it just isn't really that great. It's not a great film. It's not a total piece of shit, but at the same time, it's not really that great of a movie. These are the type of movies that are the hardest for me to review, because it's not a total train wreck, and it's not a total pile of shit and piss, but at the same time, it does stink. It does stink. It just doesn't stink as bad as some other movies. And I really would not blame anyone if they decide not to watch this, because they've heard the bad reviews and so on. But if you're curious about it, I'd say give it a watch for the stunt work, for the motorcycle stunt riding, for Dax Shepard and Michael Peña, and for there are some chuckles to be had here with the film, but not enough. The crippling flaws Chips has is it needed to be funnier, and it also needed to have a more engaging, unique plot. It didn't have those things, so it was just kind of running on fumes for the entire running time. You know, you can have some fun with it, but not a lot. And it's definitely not a film I have any desire to watch again. I probably definitely won't add it to my collection. But, you know, it's one of those movies I didn't hate, even though it wasn't a great film. I mean, not every movie has to be a classic, but it's one of those films that it could have been a time waster for me, because I liked Dax Shepard and Michael Peña, and Vincent D'Onofrio is an okay enough villain. There's some cool stuff with the bikes, with the souped up Ducatis, with D'Onofrio's souped up bike of his own, which is a Warlock, I think, which shoots flames out of the back, and is actually pretty fucking badass. So, I mean, there are some things in this movie that aren't total shit, but then there's the rest of it, which is. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Chips, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give the movie, I would give it 2 out of 5. It's not quite there in terms of a time waster. It's not an average film. It's definitely a below average movie, and it's a shame, because I saw potential here. There's potential for a fun action comedy, but it just isn't funny for the most part, and the story sucked. But the action actually wasn't that bad. I thought the action was better than any action sequence in Baywatch. It just needed a better script, a rewrite. The humor needed to be more consistent and actually genuinely funny, and not just really just tiresome, tired gags that you've seen done a million times. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Chips. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.